You live in a world obsessed with recognition, applause, and instant validation. Everyone wants to show what they are doing, post what they are achieving, and prove their worth to others. But let me tell you a simple truth: real transformation does not seek an audience. Growth is quiet. Progress does not shout. It whispers in your actions, not in your words. When you focus on improving yourself, not to impress anyone, something incredible happens. Your mind becomes sharper, your decisions wiser, and your presence more powerful. You start noticing that life responds to effort, not noise. People will see the change, but it will be too late for them to influence it. The results themselves speak, silently, yet unmistakably. Stop measuring yourself by likes, approvals, or comparisons. Every time you try to prove, you weaken your own effort. Instead, channel your energy into learning, practicing, and refining yourself. Build habits that matter. Work on your body, your mind, your skills, your character. When others are busy talking, you are busy becoming. Patience is your ally. Quiet improvement requires patience because the world rewards results, not intentions. The moment you stop chasing attention and start chasing mastery, a shift occurs. Your work begins to attract recognition naturally. Your growth becomes undeniable, not because you shouted it, but because it cannot be ignored. Remember, the world will always have opinions, distractions, and noise. The louder it gets, the quieter you must become. Focus on the depth of your effort, not the breadth of your acknowledgement. Success does not need witnesses. Excellence is self evident. So improve yourself quietly. Let your dedication, discipline, and commitment be your voice. Let the results do the talking. Let the impact of your actions create the ripple that words cannot capture. In the end, the quiet doers leave the loudest mark. In a world that never stops talking, constantly broadcasting every small achievement and celebrating the loudest voices, the idea of improving oneself quietly can seem almost alien. Society has conditioned us to believe that success must be displayed, that progress must be documented, and that value is measured by recognition. Yet there is a profound wisdom in silence, a deep power in the quiet cultivation of the self. When you choose to improve yourself without seeking attention, you are stepping into a space of true authenticity and strength. Real growth does not demand witnesses, it thrives in the unseen, the uncelebrated, the unrecorded. There is an elegance in this invisibility, a freedom in detachment from external approval, because the journey of self improvement is ultimately personal. It belongs to no one else but you. The more you attach it to the gaze of others, the more it is diluted, distorted, and controlled by forces outside your own being. Quiet self improvement begins with awareness: awareness of your mind, your habits, your thoughts, and your tendencies. It begins with the willingness to observe yourself honestly, to notice where your weaknesses lie, and to confront the subtle excuses that keep you stagnant. So often we hide behind the illusion of busyness, distracting ourselves with noise, social media, conversations, and opinions, convincing ourselves that we are doing enough. True improvement requires a different kind of discipline, one that is not performative but introspective. It asks you to ask difficult questions, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to face the parts of yourself you might rather ignore. This is not done for applause, it is done for clarity. It is done for the integrity of your own being. When you improve yourself quietly, you begin to develop a deeper understanding of effort itself. You learn to distinguish between superficial effort and meaningful effort. Superficial effort seeks recognition, meaningful effort seeks transformation. One is noisy, distracted, and dependent on validation. The other is silent, focused, and self sufficient. By committing to the latter, you free yourself from the traps of comparison and competition, which are the silent thieves of joy. You stop worrying about what others think of your progress because your work becomes a conversation between you and yourself. It is an intimate dialogue of effort and learning, where the measure of success is no longer applause but internal growth. The process of quiet self improvement also cultivates patience. In a culture that demands instant results, the slow, steady work of transformation is often undervalued. Yet, real change takes time. Habits are not formed in a day, character is not built overnight. When you improve yourself quietly, you accept the slow rhythm of growth. You understand that each small act, each conscious choice, and each repeated effort is a building block of something far greater than immediate recognition. Patience is not just a virtue, it is the foundation upon which lasting improvement is built. You learn to trust the process, to honor the journey, and to resist the temptation of shortcuts that promise visibility but deliver only shallow results. Improving yourself quietly also sharpens your focus. In silence, there are no distractions from the eyes of others, no distortions from public opinion. Your attention is fully on the work, on the habits, on the refinement of your mind and character. This focus is not just mental, it is existential. It allows you to see clearly where you are, where you want to be, and what steps are necessary to close that gap. Focus and discipline become allies, and you discover the power of consistent, deliberate action. Small actions, repeated without fanfare, compound over time into significant transformation. The quiet path is not glamorous, but it is effective. It is a path that those who seek instant validation really understand because its rewards are subtle yet irreversible. There is also a profound sense of freedom in silent improvement. When your growth does not depend on external validation, you are no longer enslaved by the judgments, expectations, or attention of others. You are free to explore, to experiment, to fail, and to learn without fear. This freedom allows your improvement to be holistic, not performative. You develop not just skills but also character. You refine not just your actions but also your intentions. You grow not just in knowledge but in wisdom. And as you grow quietly, you begin to notice a shift in your environment. People respond differently to you, not because you demanded attention, but because change has an energy of its own. Your presence, your calm competence, and your subtle confidence become evident. Others sense the authenticity of your effort, even if it is unspoken. Another important aspect of improving yourself quietly is the cultivation of humility. True transformation is never about showing off, it is about becoming more aligned with reality, more capable, and more present. Humility emerges naturally when you focus on the work rather than the recognition. You understand that every skill learned, every insight gained, and every habit formed is part of a larger process in which you are merely participating. There is no need for boastfulness because you recognize that improvement is ongoing. You are never finished, you are always evolving. Humility does not diminish you, it strengthens your capacity to learn, to connect, and to adapt. Furthermore, improving yourself quietly strengthens resilience. When your motivation is internal, rooted in your own desire for growth rather than external validation, setbacks do not deter you. Failure does not embarrass you. Criticism does not demoralize you. You continue to move forward because your effort is your own, untethered to the applause or judgment of others. This internal resilience is far more powerful than any external reward because it cannot be taken away, diluted, or delayed. It becomes a source of inner stability and confidence, allowing you to navigate life's challenges with composure and clarity. Finally, the quiet improvement of oneself cultivates wisdom. When you are not distracted by the need to perform for an audience, your mind becomes capable of reflection, insight, and understanding. You learn to discern what truly matters, what is temporary, and what is enduring. You begin to see the patterns in your life, the causes of suffering, and the ways in which you can act more skillfully. Wisdom emerges naturally from sustained, quiet effort because you are not scattering your energy on appearances. You invest it in understanding, practicing, and refining yourself. The transformation becomes evident not in loud declarations, but in your behavior, choices, and presence. In essence, the act of improving yourself quietly is a rebellion against the superficial measures of success that dominate our society. It is a declaration that your growth belongs to you and you alone, that it is not contingent on recognition, applause, or validation. It is a commitment to integrity, discipline, patience, humility, and resilience. It is a realization that the most profound and lasting transformation is invisible to the world but undeniable in its effect. It whispers through your actions, radiates through your character, and manifests in the results that cannot be ignored. So, if you wish to truly grow, turn inward. Observe yourself honestly. Work diligently, consistently, and quietly. Do not announce, do not perform, do not seek approval. Let your effort be intimate, your discipline unwavering, and your patience infinite. The world may not notice immediately, but it will eventually. And when it does, it will not be because you demanded it, but because quiet effort, like a river carving through stone, leaves marks that are impossible to erase. Real growth is a silent force, powerful beyond measure, and those who embrace it become unstoppable, not in noise, but in essence. The river narrows as they approach home. Green bushes and stones on both sides, English voice, home was near. Human beings have an innate tendency to compare themselves with others. From a very early age, we are conditioned to measure our worth based on how we stand against those around us. How well we perform in school, how much attention we receive, how many accolades we earn, and how our lives appear in the eyes of others. Society reinforces this constantly, teaching us that approval, recognition, and comparison are the benchmarks of value. Yet, this habit of comparison is one of the most subtle and persistent thieves of peace, progress, and authenticity. When you continuously measure yourself against others, you step into a game that is rigged. Every person's journey is unique, and external benchmarks can never fully capture your own growth, potential, or path. Comparison creates illusion, distraction, and dissatisfaction. It pulls your attention away from the one person who truly matters in your journey, yourself. Approval seeking is the twin companion of comparison. When you are constantly looking for validation from others, you surrender control over your life. Your choices, actions, and even emotions are filtered through the gaze of someone else. You begin to act not for growth, not for fulfillment, but for approval. Every decision is weighed against what will be seen favorably, what will be celebrated, or what will meet the expectations of others. The result is a life lived partially outside of yourself, fragmented between your true desires and the pressure to perform. Improvement becomes conditional, growth becomes performative, and authenticity is sacrificed at the altar of recognition. Yet, the irony is that approval, no matter how abundant, is fleeting. People's opinions are transient, inconsistent, and often uninformed. Seeking it is an endless pursuit with no lasting satisfaction. Avoiding comparison and approval seeking is not a call to arrogance or isolation. It is instead an invitation to align with your own reality. When you stop looking sideways at others, you stop being distracted by paths that are not yours. You stop wasting energy trying to imitate or compete. Instead, you focus on your own habits, your own learning, your own growth. Your standards become internal rather than external. You measure yourself against your previous self, not against the highlight reels of others' lives. This shift is profoundly liberating because your progress becomes a personal journey guided by intrinsic motivation, discipline, and self reflection. When the measure of success is internal, you are free to pursue mastery, excellence, and fulfillment without fear, distraction, or compromise. The consequences of comparison and approval seeking are often invisible at first. You may not notice the subtle anxiety, the small self doubts, or the constant need to justify your choices. But over time, the see patterns erode confidence, peace of mind, and clarity of purpose. You begin to undervalue your achievements, discount your progress, and inflate the successes of others. You may even sabotage your own growth because the mind becomes preoccupied with appearances rather than substance. True improvement, however, demands a mind that is calm, focused, and anchored in reality. It requires attention to your own actions, decisions, and results, not to the fleeting judgments of others. Avoiding comparison also cultivates gratitude. When you stop constantly measuring your life against the lives of others, you start to see and appreciate your own journey. You notice the progress you have made, however small. You recognize the unique resources, circumstances, and talents you possess. Gratitude emerges naturally, not as a forced practice, but as a recognition of the reality of your own path. And when gratitude is present, motivation becomes more sustainable. You work because it matters, not because you are trying to prove something to the world. Growth becomes fulfilling in itself rather than a means to a social end. One of the deepest lessons in avoiding comparison is the understanding of impermanence and uniqueness. Everyone has their own challenges, timing, and resources. Someone's success does not diminish your potential, someone's path does not invalidate your journey. When you stop measuring yourself against the progress of others, you recognize the uniqueness of your own life. You become more accepting of your pace, your choices, and your challenges. This acceptance does not mean complacency, it means clarity. You are no longer distracted by envy or insecurity. Instead, you focus entirely on the elements that you can influence, the efforts you can sustain, and the growth you can cultivate. Avoiding approval seeking also strengthens internal resilience. When your motivation is internal, rooted in your own understanding of what is valuable, you become less dependent on external feedback. Criticism no longer destabilizes you. Praise no longer inflates your ego. You learn to act from conviction rather than convenience, from insight rather than obligation. This resilience is crucial because life is inherently unpredictable, filled with challenges, setbacks, and misunderstandings. If your growth depends on the approval of others, every obstacle becomes magnified. If your growth is rooted in self alignment, obstacles become opportunities for learning and strengthening your capacity. Moreover, avoiding comparison and approval seeking fosters authenticity. You begin to make choices based on truth rather than perception. Your actions reflect your values, your intentions, and your understanding of what is meaningful. You stop performing for an audience, even an imagined one. This authenticity attracts the right opportunities, relationships, and circumstances into your life naturally. People respond to sincerity, dedication, and clarity, not to noise, imitation, or performative gestures. By aligning with your true self, you create conditions for sustainable growth and genuine influence. It is also important to recognize that comparison is often a subtle form of self deception. By constantly looking at others, we justify our own inaction, diminish our achievements, or inflate the difficulty of our journey. Approval seeking, likewise, can mask insecurity, fear, or a lack of self trust. Both patterns keep us trapped in reactive living, responding to external signals rather than creating our own reality. The moment you shift your attention inward, you reclaim control. You observe honestly, act intentionally, and measure progress by internal criteria. This shift is liberating because it replaces anxiety with focus, insecurity with confidence, and distraction with purpose. Avoiding comparison and approval seeking also encourages deep, sustained effort. When you act quietly, without the desire to be seen, you are free to experiment, to fail, and to refine yourself without fear of judgment. Mistakes become lessons rather than embarrassments. Effort becomes a dialogue with reality rather than a performance for an audience. Over time, this quiet, disciplined approach produces mastery, resilience, and growth that are far more substantial than anything gained through superficial approval or recognition. The results may be invisible at first, but their impact is enduring. Finally, the practice of avoiding comparison and approval seeking aligns you with the reality that life itself is a teacher. Life does not reward pretension, it responds to authenticity, effort, and alignment. When you focus on your own journey, you are attuned to the opportunities, lessons, and growth inherent in your unique circumstances. You act with clarity and purpose. You progress without distraction. You cultivate patience, discipline, and insight. In this way, growth becomes inevitable, not dependent on external validation, but a natural outcome of focused, consistent, and authentic effort. In essence, choosing to avoid comparison and approval seeking is a declaration of independence. It is a commitment to align with your own reality, to measure your progress against your own standards, and to act with integrity, discipline, and focus. It liberates your energy, sharpens your clarity, and nurtures resilience. It fosters gratitude, patience, and authentic motivation. It strengthens your ability to learn, to adapt, and to grow without distraction. And ultimately, it allows your results, character, and presence to speak for themselves, powerfully, unmistakably, and silently. When you stop seeking approval and stop comparing yourself to others, you step into a life of genuine growth, profound satisfaction, and undeniable impact. Patience is one of the most underestimated virtues in life. In a world obsessed with speed, instant results, and immediate gratification, the value of waiting, enduring, and sustaining effort is often overlooked. Yet, patience is not a passive act. It is not simply waiting for things to happen. True patience is an active engagement with time, effort, and the process of growth. It is a disciplined understanding that meaningful change, profound learning, and real transformation cannot be rushed. Every person who has achieved mastery, wisdom, or success understands that patience is not a luxury. It is the foundation upon which lasting results are built. Life itself teaches patience through countless lessons, yet we often resist them. When outcomes do not arrive according to our schedule, frustration arises. When progress seems slow, we doubt our methods, our abilities, or even the value of our efforts. We compare ourselves to others, we measure our journey against arbitrary timelines, and we lose sight of the fact that every process has its own rhythm. True patience requires the ability to observe, endure, and persist without attachment to immediate outcomes. It is the recognition that effort is the only variable fully within your control, and that results, though inevitable when effort is consistent, cannot be forced or hurried. Patience allows depth. Without it, growth is shallow, superficial, and fleeting. One cannot develop skill, character, or insight overnight. Habits are not formed in a single day. Wisdom is not acquired in an instant. Relationships are not nurtured in a moment. When we rush, we skip essential stages of learning and refinement, often undermining our own progress. Patience ensures that every step is thorough, every lesson internalized, and every action deliberate. It is the slow accumulation of effort that produces results that endure, not the hasty attempt to achieve immediate gratification or recognition. The practice of patience is also closely tied to trust, trust in yourself, in your process, and in the natural unfolding of events. Impatience often stems from fear, doubt, or a desire to control outcomes. We become restless, seeking shortcuts, avoiding discomfort, and chasing immediate validation. Patience, on the other hand, reflects a deep understanding of cause and effect. You act consistently, wisely, and deliberately, knowing that results will follow in time. You stop forcing, manipulating, or overextending, and instead allow the process to reveal its own rhythm. In this way, patience becomes not just endurance, but intelligent action, aligned with reality rather than resistance. Moreover, patience strengthens resilience. Life is filled with obstacles, failures, and unforeseen circumstances. Without patience, setbacks become overwhelming, progress appears meaningless, and effort feels futile. Yet, with patience, setbacks are reframed as temporary, failures are reframed as lessons, and obstacles become opportunities to refine skill, strategy, and understanding. Patience is the silent force that allows you to continue in the face of difficulty, to persevere when the world offers no immediate reward, and to sustain effort even when recognition is absent. It transforms challenges from discouragement into fuel for growth. Another aspect of patience is the cultivation of discernment. When you act with patience, you begin to notice the nuances, subtleties, and patterns in your work, your behavior, and the environment around you. You learn to distinguish between actions that produce lasting impact and those that are merely superficial. You become attuned to timing, understanding that some efforts require waiting for the right key moment to manifest fully. Impatience, by contrast, leads to hasty decisions, errors, and missed opportunities. Patience allows clarity, precision, and strategic thinking to guide your actions, ensuring that your effort is not wasted and your results are durable. Patience is also intimately connected to humility. The ability to wait, to endure, and to persist without immediate recognition requires a surrender to reality. You recognize that not everything is under your control, that some things unfold according to their own rhythm, and that forcing outcomes is often counterproductive. This humility fosters learning because you approach every situation with openness, reflection, and a willingness to adapt. You stop pretending that results should arrive on your schedule and instead align your effort with the natural course of growth and development. Humility, therefore, is both a product and a facilitator of patience. The virtue of patience also nurtures consistency, which is essential for profound results. Momentary bursts of effort are fleeting, they may produce temporary results, but rarely lead to lasting transformation. Patience allows you to sustain effort over the long term, to repeat actions, refine methods, and gradually accumulate mastery. This consistent, patient approach compounds over time, creating momentum that is far more powerful than any sudden display of energy or skill. Every small, patient step contributes to a larger pattern of growth that becomes undeniable in its effect. Furthermore, patience teaches the value of delayed gratification. Many of life's most meaningful rewards require time, effort, and sacrifice. Instant pleasure, shortcuts, or superficial achievements provide temporary satisfaction but rarely contribute to lasting fulfillment or impact. Patience enables you to prioritize long term benefits over immediate comfort, to delay short term desires in favor of sustainable growth and to invest in the kind of effort that produces enduring results. In this way, patience is not just waiting, it is wise allocation of energy toward what truly matters. Patience also cultivates inner peace. When you are impatient, the mind is restless, anxious, and easily frustrated. Every delay, setback, or challenge feels intolerable. Yet, patience allows the mind to settle, to observe, and to act with calm clarity. You stop reacting impulsively to circumstances and begin responding with intention. Peace does not mean inaction, it means action aligned with understanding, effort sustained without desperation, and progress pursued without agitation. Patience provides the mental space for reflection, learning, and deliberate growth. Importantly, patience is a prerequisite for mastering any discipline, skill, or personal transformation. Whether it is intellectual, physical, emotional, or spiritual, true mastery cannot be rushed. Skill emerges from repetition. Understanding deepens with reflection, and character is forged through endurance. Impatience cuts short this process, seeking quick results and often producing only superficial competence. Patience allows you to engage fully with the work, to embrace challenges, and to integrate lessons deeply. It ensures that your progress is not only visible but also resilient, authentic, and lasting. Finally, patience is the foundation of trust in life itself. When you act with patience, you recognize that growth is a process governed by consistent effort, timing, and natural laws. You trust that if you continue to act wisely, diligently, and deliberately, the results will manifest. This trust replaces anxiety, doubt, and desperation with confidence, calmness, and steady focus. Patience becomes the lens through which you view effort, time, and success, allowing you to engage fully in your journey without being distracted by impatience, comparison, or fear. In essence, patience is not merely a passive virtue, it is an active, disciplined engagement with life and growth. It is the understanding that meaningful progress takes time, that effort compounds quietly, and that results cannot be forced. Patience allows depth, clarity, resilience, humility, consistency, and inner peace. It enables long term vision, sustainable effort, and authentic transformation. When you cultivate patience, you align with reality, act deliberately, and trust the process of growth. Every step, no matter how small, contributes to an enduring pattern of achievement that words cannot replicate, recognition cannot replace, and shortcuts cannot produce. If you embrace patience, you liberate yourself from frustration, impulsiveness, and the illusion of instant results. You develop the capacity to sustain effort, to endure challenges, and to pursue mastery with quiet confidence. You transform waiting into growth, delays into learning, and effort into undeniable results. Patience becomes the silent force that shapes your journey, strengthens your character, and ensures that your life reflects the depth, integrity, and consistency of your dedication. In the end, those who cultivate patience quietly build foundations that cannot be shaken, achieve results that cannot be denied, and create lives that speak volumes without a single word. In a world obsessed with quantity, speed, and multitasking, there is a quiet but profound power in choosing depth over breadth. Society celebrates those who appear busy, who accumulate experiences, skills, and knowledge superficially, and who seem to touch many things at once. Yet, this superficial engagement rarely produces mastery, insight, or lasting impact. True growth, true understanding, and true accomplishment come not from scattering energy across numerous pursuits, but from immersing oneself deeply in the things that truly matter. Depth is a measure of quality, focus, and dedication, while breadth without depth often leads to distraction, incompletion, and exhaustion. Choosing depth over breadth is a commitment to significance, mastery, and meaningful transformation. Depth begins with focus. When you choose to go deep, you are consciously deciding where to invest your time, energy, and attention. You are saying no to distractions, superficial pursuits, and the endless pull of novelty. Instead of trying to do everything, you concentrate on what aligns with your values, your goals, and your growth. This focus allows for sustained engagement, reflection, and refinement. It enables you to move beyond surface understanding, to see the nuances, patterns, and connections that others miss. Depth is about intimacy with the work, the skill, or the subject. It is about becoming profoundly familiar with its essence, not just skimming its surface. Depth also cultivates mastery. Superficial engagement may provide a passing acquaintance with knowledge or skill, but it rarely produces competence. Mastery requires sustained effort, repetition, reflection, and correction. It requires time spent learning, failing, adjusting, and persisting in the same area until understanding is internalized. When you choose depth over breadth, you allow this process to unfold. You engage fully, observe carefully, and practice deliberately. Over time, this deep commitment produces results that are undeniable, reliable, and transformative. The person who goes deep gains an advantage not just in skill, but in insight, judgment, and the ability to innovate. Depth is the soil in which expertise, wisdom, and resilience grow. Another important aspect of depth is the cultivation of understanding. When you spread yourself too thin, knowledge in the experience remain fragmented, disconnected, and shallow. You may know many things superficially, but you understand few things profoundly. Depth allows integration. It allows you to connect principles, recognize underlying patterns, and develop insight that is coherent and applicable. Understanding arises not from accumulation, but from immersion. It arises not from the number of experiences, but from the quality of engagement with each experience. Depth transforms information into wisdom and action into meaningful impact. Depth also fosters authenticity. When you engage deeply, you are more likely to act with integrity, intentionality, and alignment with your values. Breadth without depth often leads to mimicry, performative action, and superficial appearances. You may accumulate achievements, credentials, or experiences, but they may not reflect your true potential or understanding. Depth requires honesty, introspection, and dedication. It demands that you confront your weaknesses, explore your limits, and refine your abilities in a focused and deliberate manner. By going deep, you develop a foundation of authenticity that sustains effort, decision making, and influence over the long term. Choosing depth over breadth also strengthens patience and resilience. Depth cannot be achieved instantly. It demands time, sustained effort, and the willingness to endure challenges. By committing to depth, you develop the patience to persist through difficulties, setbacks, and periods of slow progress. You also cultivate resilience because depth requires engagement with the core realities of a task, skill, or challenge, including its frustrations, failures, and imperfections. Superficial engagement may provide temporary satisfaction, but it rarely builds the resilience necessary for enduring growth or significant achievement. Depth, by contrast, fortifies character and ability. Depth encourages reflection and learning. When you immerse yourself fully in a subject, practice, or pursuit, you have the opportunity to observe, analyze, and internalize lessons. You notice subtleties, recognize patterns, and learn from mistakes. Breadth often prevents this kind of reflection because attention is divided, engagement is shallow, and experience is fragmented. Depth creates space for contemplation, understanding, and iterative improvement. It allows you to refine methods, adapt strategies, and cultivate a higher level of skill and insight that is inaccessible to those who pursue breadth at the expense of focus. Another consequence of depth is efficiency. While breadth may give the appearance of productivity, it often leads to wasted effort, confusion, and scattered energy. Depth allows for more meaningful, efficient progress because every action, every effort, and every reflection contributes directly to mastery, understanding, and impact. When you go deep, you align effort with outcome. Your energy is concentrated, deliberate, and effective. This is why depth is often more powerful than breadth. One person working deeply in a focused area can achieve far more lasting impact than many who spread themselves thin across multiple superficial pursuits. Depth also nurtures creativity and innovation. True innovation arises from deep understanding, not superficial knowledge. When you immerse yourself fully in a subject, you begin to see patterns, contradictions, and possibilities that others overlook. Depth allows you to combine knowledge, experience, and insight in unique ways. It fosters originality because you are engaging with the essence of your work rather than imitating surface level trends or ideas. Many of history's greatest achievements, whether in art, science, or philosophy, emerged from the deep, sustained engagement of individuals' company, committed to mastering a field rather than skimming across many. Furthermore, depth fosters fulfillment. Superficial engagement may produce temporary satisfaction, recognition, or distraction, but it rarely produces lasting meaning. Depth allows you to experience the satisfaction of mastery, the joy of understanding, and the fulfillment of meaningful contribution. When you go deep, your work, your skill, and your growth become sources of intrinsic reward. You no longer need external validation to feel accomplishment. The depth of your engagement itself becomes its own measure of worth. This fulfillment is quiet, profound, and enduring, unlike the fleeting gratification of breadth without focus. Depth also enhances impact. One person who goes deep can influence, inspire, and transform in ways that many who spread themselves thin cannot. The credibility, insight, and skill developed through deep engagement resonate powerfully with others. People recognize mastery, wisdom, and authenticity because depth creates a natural authority. It is visible not through noise or performance, but through competence, consistency, and the undeniable quality of results. Depth is inherently influential because it produces outcomes, insight, and character that cannot be ignored. Finally, choosing depth over breadth is a commitment to intentional living. It is a rejection of distraction, superficiality, and performative effort. It is a decision to focus on what matters, to invest fully in your growth, and to act with deliberate purpose. Depth is a path of integrity, discipline, and sustained effort. It aligns attention, energy, and intention toward meaningful outcomes. By choosing depth, you create a life that is coherent, powerful, and resilient. You develop mastery, insight, patience, and authenticity. You cultivate resilience, creativity, and lasting fulfillment. In a world of noise and superficiality, depth becomes a rare but transformative power. In essence, depth over breadth is not merely a strategy, it is a philosophy of life. It is an understanding that true growth, impact, and fulfillment arise from focused, sustained, and deliberate engagement rather than scattered, superficial effort. It is a call to invest in mastery, understanding, and meaningful contribution rather than chasing quantity, appearances, or transient satisfaction. Depth shapes character, sharpens insight, strengthens resilience, and produces results that are undeniable. It transforms effort into impact, learning into wisdom, and growth into lasting fulfillment. Those who embrace depth quietly cultivate a power, clarity, and influence that spreads far beyond the limits of breadth. In a world that constantly glorifies noise, display, and attention seeking, there is a quiet and often overlooked truth. The strongest impact comes from quiet dedication. Society celebrates those who speak loudly, advertise their achievements, and seek recognition for every effort. Yet it is often the person who works silently, consistently, and with unwavering commitment who leaves a mark that endures far beyond the noise. Quiet dedication is not about secrecy or hiding effort. It is about focusing fully on the work itself rather than on the applause it may generate. It is about committing to growth, mastery, and contribution for their intrinsic value rather than for external recognition. The world may not notice immediately, but the results of such dedication ripple outward in ways that are profound, lasting, and transformative. Quiet dedication begins with intention. It is the deliberate choice to engage fully in the process of improvement, skill building, or contribution without being distracted by the desire for acknowledgement. Many people measure their worth through visibility, through likes, see, immense praise, or applause. Quiet dedication rejects this measure. It focuses instead on effort, consistency, and excellence. The mind of a quietly dedicated person is not fragmented by comparisons, approvals, or superficial distractions. Energy is concentrated where it matters, on the work itself, which becomes the ultimate teacher, guide, and metric of success. One of the most powerful aspects of quiet dedication is its cumulative effect. Every small, consistent effort, repeated day after day, compounds over time. While others may be seeking shortcuts, attention, or rapid results, the quietly dedicated individual invests patiently and persistently in the fundamentals. These efforts, though often invisible at first, create a foundation that is stronger than any appearance, claim, or temporary display could provide. Like a river carving through stone, quiet, persistent action shapes results that are enduring, inevitable, and impossible to ignore once they manifest fully. Quiet dedication also cultivates resilience. When effort is directed toward genuine growth rather than recognition, setbacks, criticism, and failure do not deter. There is no dependency on praise to sustain motivation. The drive comes from within, from an understanding of the value of consistent action. Challenges are seen as opportunities for refinement rather than as threats to ego or reputation. In this way, the quietly dedicated develop a strength of character and stability of purpose that is immune to the fluctuations of external opinion. Their persistence is anchored in understanding rather than vanity, which allows them to endure hardships, learn from mistakes, and emerge stronger over time. Another important dimension of quiet dedication is focus. When you are not preoccupied with performing for others, your attention is fully directed toward the task at hand. This focus is a multiplier of F skill, understanding, and effectiveness. Superficial effort spread across many distractions produces shallow results. Dedicated, focused effort, even if modest in appearance, produces deep, meaningful outcomes. The person who engages deeply with their work, refining, adjusting, and learning in silence, gains an advantage that is rarely visible in the short term but undeniable in its long term effects. Depth of engagement and clarity of purpose amplify impact far beyond what can be achieved through noise or performance. Quiet dedication fosters humility. It teaches that the value of effort is not in its recognition but in its integrity. There is no need to boast, exaggerate, or seek validation when the work itself is meaningful and transformative. Humility is not weakness, it is strength grounded in reality. It allows the dedicated person to learn, grow, and persist without being distracted by ego or societal expectations. The work is done for its own sake, not for applause, and this purity of intention is what ultimately produces the most lasting and authentic impact. Consistency is another gift of quiet dedication. Regular, disciplined effort over time is far more powerful than sporadic bursts of visible activity. The person who quietly dedicates themselves builds momentum that compounds steadily, producing results that are exponential rather than incremental. This consistency also creates reliability. Others may come and go, their attention may fluctuate, but the quietly dedicated individual is a constant force. Their impact is not dependent on trends, attention spans, or temporary recognition. It grows quietly, inevitably, and with enduring significance. Quiet dedication also nurtures insight and wisdom. When you are focused on work rather than on recognition, the mind is free to observe, reflect, and learn. Mistakes are analyzed without fear, successes are studied without arrogance, and patterns emerge naturally. This reflective engagement produces wisdom, which further amplifies effectiveness and impact. The person who dedicates themselves quietly develops a depth of understanding and skill that cannot be imitated by those who focus on visibility rather than substance. Their influence is rooted in knowledge, experience, and mastery, rather than in transient noise or appearance. Furthermore, quiet dedication enhances influence in subtle but powerful ways. People are naturally drawn to those who act with competence, integrity, and consistency. The impact of such individuals is not always immediate or loud, but it is profound and enduring. Their presence commands respect, their actions inspire trust, and their results create authority. Unlike attention seekers, whose influence is often shallow and short lived, the quietly dedicated leave a legacy that resonates deeply, affecting others not through spectacle, but through the undeniable power of sustained, meaningful action. Quiet dedication also encourages a deeper connection to purpose. When effort is not distracted by the desire for recognition, you are free to align your actions with your values, priorities, and long term goals. Every choice becomes intentional, every effort deliberate, and every step aligned with a larger vision. This alignment amplifies impact because actions are coherent, directed, and infused with meaning. The person who dedicates themselves quietly is not swayed by external noise, trends, or expectations. Their purpose guides them, and their work becomes a reflection of their deepest intentions and highest standards. Another aspect of quiet dedication is the cultivation of patience. Results do not always appear immediately. Recognition may be delayed, progress may seem slow, and challenges may arise. Yet, the quietly dedicated persist. They understand that meaningful impact requires time, sustained effort, and a willingness to endure obstacles. Patience allows them to maintain consistency, focus, and resilience. It transforms waiting and enduring into a form of engagement rather than frustration. The results, when they emerge, are often far greater than those achieved through hasty, noisy, or attention driven effort. Quiet dedication also fosters internal satisfaction and fulfillment. When effort is motivated by genuine commitment rather than external approval, every accomplishment, no matter how small, becomes intrinsically rewarding. There is a profound sense of alignment, achievement, and self respect that comes from knowing that work is being done sincerely and consistently. This internal reward is far more sustaining and meaningful than applause or recognition, and it creates a deep sense of purpose that guides continued effort. The principle of quiet dedication also encourages adaptability. When effort is focused on growth and mastery rather than performance, setbacks, failures, and challenges are approached as opportunities to learn rather than threats to reputation. The quietly dedicated adjust strategies, refine methods, and deepen understanding without the fear of judgment or the need to perform. This flexibility enhances long term impact because it allows continuous improvement and alignment with reality rather than being constrained by ego or external expectations. Finally, quiet dedication leaves a legacy. It is often invisible at first, subtle in its presence, and misunderstood by those who value noise over substance. Yet its effects are profound and enduring, whether in personal growth, relationships, professional achievements, or contribution to society. The quietly dedicated create patterns of influence that persist, inspire, and transform. Their work, carried out consistently, intentionally, and without distraction by recognition, resonates far beyond their immediate visibility. The impact is quiet but unshakable, subtle but powerful, delayed but inevitable. In essence, quiet dedication is the cultivation of consistent effort, deep focus, integrity, and resilience without the need for external validation. It produces mastery, insight, patience, and authenticity. It creates influence that is subtle yet enduring, impact that is profound yet unobtrusive, and results that are undeniable. Those who dedicate themselves quietly act with purpose, commit fully to their growth, and allow their work to speak on their behalf. In a world of noise and distraction, their impact stands out precisely because it is quiet, deliberate, and uncompromised. Quiet dedication is the art of letting your actions, your consistency, and your results speak louder than words. It is the path of true influence, lasting impact, and authentic achievement. It is the recognition that the loudest gestures often fade, while the quiet, persistent efforts leave a mark that endures far beyond immediate attention. When you dedicate yourself quietly, you harness a power that is subtle, profound, and unstoppable. In the end, it is those who work silently, consistently, and with unwavering commitment who leave the strongest, most enduring impact on the world.